Oh yeah, there we go. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Greetings from the Digital Academy.
Okay, hi everybody. Hello. This is the Digital Academy, and so we have just gone through 3 days of digital media creation, and our wonderful participants here will tell you about what they did and what they're going to take away from this. So thank you for your attention, and on with the show.
Would you like to start us out, Kristen? Sure. So, having these 3 days to participate in the Digital Academy gave us all space to play with tools that we had never played with before and think about using them in ways to incorporate into our everyday work. When I first started this, I thought that I would have something specific to think about that I would focus on and try to find a tool to fit that. But actually, as the days went on, and I listened to other people's ideas and I played with things, that's where the ideas came from. So it was in the play itself that I generated new ideas. So it was great.
Yeah, I learned to fail really well. I did a lot of things really poorly and got a lot better at not letting that make me have a panic attack or anything, which I think is really important with new tools, that you're not afraid of breaking them or throwing your headphones.
Yeah, and something that I tried that I really did not like, and I thought, okay, I'll just skip that one. Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm getting some ideas on how it could be used, so I'm willing to go back and learn how to use it and do a better job and see if it indeed does that.
Which tool was that?
It was the animated GIF, which I was not
I was not
enthralled
the
with.
biggest fan.
Yeah, but I think it has a lot of cool possibilities.
See, now I love the animated GIF because you can combine things frame by frame. And so, I mean, we started out in a limited way, just looking at our body motions and, how to express something. But you can put images, you can put all sorts of, text combinations. And I've seen videos where people have used this before, so it's kind of fun to know how they did it.
Yeah. You got there a lot sooner than I did.
So talking about watching myself on the video was very kind of weird first, but then we got used to it. Right? That's the one.
That fear, speaking of fear, that was my biggest fear coming in, was images of myself, the sound of my voice, watching myself on webcam. But it's interesting how quickly you get used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that just brings the whole digital media thing wide open at that point, because if you can get past that shyness and become a ham,
right, exactly.
which I did.
And Kate and I
wrote,
we made this kind of interview sessions for 3 minutes, and we felt like, wow, it's like we are doing a radio show. That was really, it was fun to do this.
Yeah, I think we all agreed that the things we learned in terms of immediate applicability, just doing a quick and dirty screencast using QuickTime. We've all done screencasts, but a lot of times we're so busy editing and trying to perfect
We have not
it.
all done screencasts.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I love it. I do love it. I try, but I love it. That's what I'm going to use.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. If you hadn't, you probably thought, oh, that's really tricky. That's
I
a lot of
thought
editing.
librarians were so talented. And now I just know it's that little trick up your sleeve.
Exactly. Look behind that curtain every time.
But then once again, so the screen capture program was very big when I was in library school. This is like 5-6 years ago, and everything was so kind of clunky. It's very difficult, and then uploading it was just so troublesome. But now using this new program that we run, QuickTime.
Yeah.
It was so easy to upload, and everything you can do very quickly.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things we were saying. We can use this just using, even helping somebody on chat. If we can use this real time, instead of writing everything Word, we can actually show this. So that would be.
I'm looking forward to using it for student training.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think Amy mentioned that too, didn't you?
Yeah, and I like the fact that you could take those screencasts and embed them into the iBooks so that you have your training manual that's interactive.
And Kristen and I have talked about using it to help potential language classes in the fall that we're going to be maybe working with how to navigate to the aids educational posters so that they can start to do some searches. So when they come to class to start to translate them, they already know kind of how to get to the website instead of sort of first having to start there. They'll already have that foundation.
And I think it fits in with how students do searching for when they have a question. They start in YouTube, which is still hard for me to get used to, but if they want to know how to do something, they go to YouTube. And so if we said, oh, here's a library whole page, type in your keyword, see what comes up, to be able to have real answers that suit their learning needs, as opposed to suiting what we think they should learn as, which I think is kind of typical in the library world.
And this lends itself to another conversation we were having earlier about, these screencasts and with tutorials, videos, things like that. I mean, scalability. We have been increasing the level of amounts of instruction we've been doing. If you're reaching several instructors or faculty and you're trying to figure out how you're going to be able to do this in a sustainable way, that screencast or that video is a nice way to reach everybody without explaining it 50 times. So that's something that seems that's very appealing.
And the other thing that I like about it is because it's so simple and quick to do, it's not formal. You don't have to sit there and plan in advance. You just sit down and do it. And if you really flood something up, you do it again in another minute or two, and then you're done.
Exactly.
So I had an idea of having a competition among library, it could be library staff too, doing like the most common things on screencast and doing a film screening and picking the ones that we like the best. So we don't have to duplicate, each, all of us showing how to use Interlibrary Loan or all of us showing how to do a certain thing. I just think it would be a fun occasion.
So actually one thing that the SUNY libraries are doing, they're setting up an open source spot for tutorials. So if there's something you do, they're saying don't brand it a whole lot, but you can use it. You can use their videos, you can use their scripts, you can post your stuff up. We could certainly do it in-house. And if there's a script we really like, we can upload it to SUNY as well. They're always hoping to have more people, adding into why we keep doing the same effort instead of, getting good and finding a couple that really work. And then having a list in like our LibStats where if somebody has a question, you can search LibStats, grab that from the knowledge base and throw it into the chat, throw it into the email, whatever it is, however your questions come at you.
So there was one piece of software that I thought, I don't know what you would do with this, and that's Vine. It's like 6-second video that repeats over and over again. But Rose had some good ideas for it.
Oh, for having fun with it. And we could use it like at the end of the semester and just have, just to remind the kids to return their books and just, kind of like, as they're packing up their stuff, go, did you return your library books? And then have them running out the door returning them. So I think it's just a way to have fun and use the software.
I also think there's a way to use it with assessment in library instruction. So having just a quick one thing you learned from this session or one thing of how this session connects back to your class, and it'd be quick, and then we could sort of mine it for other kind of tips on how to improve things moving forward. But it might be a little less daunting than being confronted with sort of paper assessment or something.
It might be a nice way to make it think of 6 words. You might have them do that for conciseness, and then you just have them do it like a buzz or a jingle.
That's good.
Very creative. So also Scare Fair, it seems like there's loads of opportunities with the animated GIFs and with the Vine to do just a little teaser for Scare Fair.
Yeah, we were talking about some kind of scavenger hunt using probably recording some sounds. So using sounds as a clue to find book, for example, but then putting some kind of scary music or some, jokes in it. So maybe that would be kind of fun. Yeah.
So what are some of the other tools that people tried that they liked?
I can't remember the name of it right now, but the text editing where
Hemingway.
I sort of gotten that one a little bit was because we did it so early on, but I thought that would be useful even again in terms of but improving the manual and making sure that the text, was real accessible and that it was written in a nice active voice. And I sort of thought that was a lot of fun to play with and putting text in there and seeing what it offered as suggestions.
And because it was software, it wasn't a person you could get mad at. They said something about your writing you didn't
I got
like.
pretty mad.
Yeah, the part is that grading, like you are
Yeah.
like which grade level, that was a little bit like.
Yes, one of the things I did think, as a librarian, when we work with writing classes, is we're supposed to be involved with instructional design, and that means, and I think it goes for a whole lot of the sort of suite of tools that we looked at, how can we provide professors and instructions options that they don't know exist yet? And the only way we can do that is if we played with them and we have some ideas. So if you're in a class, you could say, hey, try Hemingway and try write the same argument, both simple without the very hard sentences, and then also if you do have very hard sentences, and what's the difference? What do you lose and what do you gain? And really thinking about the process of writing. And that's something I would have never thought of before for an opportunity for an instructor where I could talk about it with them if they had issues, that sort of thing.
So I liked Medium because you could publish an article, and I felt like it's a low pressure publishing opportunity. So like if you were new to writing articles, or even if you wrote articles, but you weren't sure if this was meant to go to a journal or not, you could like publish it and share it with your friends and get some peer review before it actually hits the world.
Yeah, I thought it would be great for something like philosophy, where you can really have a whole comment thread of, what do you mean by this? So-and-so uses this word to mean something else. I object via this. No, you're full of crap, But you can keep having that, but have it in a public place where if you're talking about Davidson's theory of something, you can send it to Davidson and he can comment on it, that it becomes a way, that is something really common to have, to think of professors as being off, they can't talk to us. But if they're living, most researchers would like to see what students are talking about, and if they didn't, it's no problem. But
a lot of professors are publishing in those kinds of venues, in popular types of publications online, and so I don't know, like that's something that I'm thinking about too. But on a separate note, with the writing classes, like you were saying, I mean, it made me feel more confident to think about having these conversations with instructors, because some of these things I know they're familiar with. But then other things, like I know that I have one that he has the students read their paper into something called AudioBox, but I don't know, what's the difference between AudioBox and having them do it in SoundCloud? So I don't know. It's just like, I feel like I can participate in that conversation now. Before I didn't feel as confident.
yeah, my fear level has dropped a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And, I must say there was one cream puff tool that we used, which was Wordle. And I don't know how many people had already used it, but, I felt probably most of us did. And so there was a low bar. It wasn't like you failed at everything. There was at least something through all of this that you felt you were confident and could use pretty easily.
On my way and thinking about all of this, I was thinking of the Wordles. It's kind of how my brain feels. After taking these intense 3 days.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think Wordle is a nice way to summarize large pieces of work. And I was wondering if it could be an index. I was also wondering if you could use Wordles to kind of keep an eye on like what people are searching within Voyager articles and books, in a live way, so that, whenever we wanted to look, we can have a good sense of, what's hot today, so.
At the Vanderbilt Library, I can't remember what the software tool that they use is, but they project it on the floor, and it's
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying.
Right.
And it's the search terms that are most popular that day.
It's out.
Oh, that's interesting.
We had a conversation that was about WordPress, and I had sort of overlooked that as a tool. I was thinking of it as a tool for sharing, but it wasn't something that we spent a lot of time learning how to produce, do production in. But it was a really great sharing medium, and some people were suggesting starting a blog instead of sending out emails. And that would, and for Q&I information for both staff and students, and that would create a, ongoing collection of
Mhm.
information that would be easier to access
Yeah.
than weeding back through your
Right.
email files.
It's not only using as a blog, you can also use as a website. So you can make
Right.
different pages, so you can expand the actual content more in depth. And then it's so easy to use.
And then you can
Even-
embed all those things.
Right.
Screenshots,
Mhm,
stuff.
videos and, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so differently we can use as a student's training tools or communicating between. staff
Communication
members.
tool, because it's so hard to communicate with such a big group of people that, run the hours between 8 a.m. and 3 a.m.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
And it is just visually a more pleasing way to
mhm.
get
Right.
information, to look at information.
And even if somebody else replies and asks a question, they can look back.
Yeah.
And you might even find your answer before you even have to ask it.
Wouldn't that be great if people would
That
have
would be nice.
blog first?
Right. Yeah, it would be nice to have like center platform, like, because we have so many Outlook, you have Google Doc, this and that, and so that would be a great place to be,
There's a lot of possibilities.
merge everything in, right?
Yeah, it's funny because WordPress is an old tool that keeps having new ways to apply,
lives,
so
yeah.
like even if it's just like an internal blog
Right.
that everyone say in Q&I use. I thought the same thing about Twitter. When I started on Twitter, it was a place where people put funny things in 140 words or maybe linked out. Well, now you see people all the time saying like, "Dear Time Warner, I hate you," and Time Warner replies, "Hey, DM us, we'll try to solve that problem." So it's the same. So you could take the screencasting and someone's like, "I can't make this work," and you say, "Oh, did you try this?" and link to a video, a screencast that you did right then. And if those sorts of, all of a sudden it becomes a conversational medium that has been around for a long time, they're all on, and yet like students are on, but they could go, "Oh yeah, I can just, hashtag UR, hashtag Digital Academy."
So we did one project where we took a bunch of photos and we added music and turned it into a pleasant video. And I feel like we have a lot of opportunities like after the fact, like after Scare Fair, after study breaks, where, and after, student work, ECO, all sorts of places. I mean, we're using Animoto a little bit for this, but we found out there's some restrictions with that, and YouTube worked really well, so.
And it was very easy to use too.
I think it'd be great to use that for personal librarian. I mean, that would give us more of a presence with the students instead of just your written information area. I mean, this is.
Here's an email.
Yeah.
It's gonna get lost in your emails.
And with that, it's like, here we are. This is what I look like.
Yeah, and I was listening to your conversation about the personal librarian program earlier, and I thought, well, that would be cool if I could embed a little video just to introduce myself. And besides my subject guides, like I can say hello and in that capacity, like in that role as a personal librarian. That would be neat.
And sometimes people wonder what do librarians do these days, with the books going away in the science library, for example. And so I think it's really useful to show like the day in the life and some of the activities that we do and the people that we help and how we help them.
That's one of the things I was thinking about, with Twitter, that very little of research on campus takes place in the library. It might be the place where people are coming through, but thinking of the library as a service and not as a place, and having videos and slideshows and here's what we do and here's what we've done and here's what we're planning on doing can really change that culture of library as a building into library as a service. And so when you think of library, you think it's like a verb or something, like, oh yeah, that's where I go for that.
Let me library.
Right, yeah, let's go library that, exactly. And not just that's a building where you go to hang out or to check out a book or, that the library is all around you, right? Isn't that a song? Love is around.
Yeah, it is.
By the way, Rochelle is making faces on campus. That's great.
So what was the most fun, either individually or as a group, whatever?
I think working as a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really nice combination of individual work and group work.
I like having the conversation, like when we did the paired conversation earlier today, and we had come prepared with a couple of things that were our big takeaways. We had already recorded those, and then we sort of shared those in partners, and then kind of created something new together and how we might apply it. I thought that that had some real value.
Yeah, I think seeing the talent of everyone, although Kristen made a little, was it a GIF where you're like, woo, that I just wanted to keep forever. But I think those sorts of things where all of a sudden you see the talent and the fun and the humor, and like that Amy has such a good eye with the camera and I don't, you know, and all of a sudden you see that like, oh, yeah, I think I liked the feeling. Jane McGonigal was just here, so that's why I'm thinking of like the leveling up, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Well, I can write 1,500 words and paste it into a blog, and then it's like, okay, well, I can put it into Hemingway and I can look at it, and then all of a sudden, like, we're editing, you know, sound and putting music overlays, and you know, Lori got interludes of music between people, and it's, if you had said the 3 days before, I would have been like, yeah, I can't do that. Like, that's for professionals. So I think that's the most fun, was in being able to look back and say, wow, I did more than I could. A rope course of some sort, you know, you didn't die.
I think that the pace worked really well, sort of like what Katie was saying, or maybe it was Rose just was saying about the balance between independent work and group work. But I think also just the idea that it was accelerated enough so that you couldn't necessarily make it perfect, and that was okay. And I feel like as a profession, we're very set on making things perfect the first time around, instead of just getting something out there that's good enough to get the information to the people when they need it. And I think that these tools are really good for that, and that there may be another level of tools that kind of, for skills that would help us sort of perfect it for other purposes, but that for most of what we do, these would be just fine.
I like the idea that from 1 hour to the next, we had no idea what we were going to do. We had our little Mission Impossible things, and we did it, and then there was the next mission. And we were saying, oh, wait, give me a break. But we just did it.
Yeah. I think the great thing was, too, I know how a lot of you work. You would have been preparing in advance.
No, I was trying to keep up.
I kept forgetting to do my homework.
Yeah. Well, it also makes me wonder, you know, for the instruction sessions that we might do that are longer, is that kind of scavenger hunt envelope kind of big reveal something we might be able to use to keep the interest going. I know that when I do sessions that are 2 hours and 40 minutes, if it's like a senior seminar, that is a long time to sort of take on myself. But to have it where it's much more student driven, I think would be really, really dynamic. So.
Right. And I think we learned a lot from Rochelle about how to teach without teaching. Like, without, it doesn't look like teaching, but somehow at the end of the day, we pack more into our brains than we thought we could, without having someone say, and next up, here's how to do this. It really is, give it a try, and there's people to help. Thank you, Cynthia. And I
Travis.
think, Travis and Harish, and I think that makes such a huge difference when you imagine getting in front of a class or training students, instead of saying, okay, we have to schedule 3 hours to walk you through every little bit of it. It's to say, okay, here's this whole set of things that you can't really break, so go and give it a shot.
Just do it.
Exactly, just do it, and here's some resources, and then there's a person. And you feel so much more empowered at the end of it, and yet there's a ton of front work that you don't see. It looks invisible, which feels good. It's nice that it's invisible.
So I thought it was interesting that we had to tweet a lot of the work that we did. And the nice thing is now I have a record going back of all the little products that I made.
That's true, yeah.
And I can go and I can look at all my friends and see their products. And so it's just kind of, it's a great way to keep a record. And I wonder if the students would want to keep a record of some of the work that we ask them to do. You know, if they have Twitter accounts, if they'd want to, maybe it would be something to take away from the class rather than a handout.
Well, it might have been you, Eileen, but there was this idea last week about maybe making, you know, after a certain assignment, compiling an iBook of student work. That was somebody here. But anyway, that made me think about that there could be this collection, you know, or something, whether it's a reflections or it's some kind of creative writing piece that they did, you know, at some point. I think that would be neat.
And sort of connected to both of yours, one of the things I found, I had a Twitter account, I had an Instagram account. all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of people at work who maybe didn't know what I was Twittering and maybe weren't expecting. Well, but it's also like one of the things Kristen had said, like, I'm not really used to putting myself out there as me. And so having those privacy sorts of issues also at the top of our head, that you can't just ask students to say, hey, set up a Twitter account or use the Twitter account you already have. It's like, set up a student Twitter account. You don't need to use your name. You just need to tell me what your thing is so you don't feel too exposed or too out there, because not everybody has a different comfort level. You know, some of us are hams. Some of us are, sure, I'll share everything.
And some of it's a question of, I learned, you know, what do I want to share with people? Maybe I don't want to share with the world certain ideas that I'm still developing. Maybe I want to, you know, maybe I do. So I think it's just a matter of personal preference and expression, but
A lot of different ways to share too.
Yeah.
With these different mediums. I mean, I don't particularly care for Twitter, though I can understand why it could be useful in terms of promotion. But I do like Instagram because I like images. So there's lots of different ways to use them, and it sort of is like a personal choice on some level. I don't know if you necessarily need to be involved in every one of them. Right.
But, but I think the library is a great place to have those conversations about privacy, about what you share, and maybe the dangers of oversharing when the camera is on.
Right, right.
Things like that. And then, you know, when we think about, again, like the library being the place where we talk about plagiarism, you might also talk about personal security, because IT will talk about what programs not to open. They won't talk about what not to share with people. Right. You know,
and it's a difference, because in the classroom, it's contained. You are having the discussion within class. If it's online learning, it is in a discussion board. If the professor is asking somebody to put something on a blog, I mean, that should be a conversation. Like, are you comfortable? What are you comfortable with sharing? What are the ground rules for this? Because it's there, and it should be that student's choice, I think, in what they want to reveal to the world versus an enclosed area.
Like with Snapchat, where everyone thought, oh, it disappears, and it's like truly nothing disappears. And so if a professor says, oh, this Twitter idea is great for a multimodal Twitter project, that you say, wait a minute, you should make sure that everybody can have an anonymous account if they want, that you know who they are, but that they're not outed, you know, in the wide world. And I think the library is a great place to have that conversation. And we can't have that if we're not in that world, at least at some point. Like, oh, let's find out about images. We're going to talk to Katie, we're going to talk to Amy, and let's talk about Twitter, we're going to talk to Mary Lou, you know, that sort of thing. Like, what do you find is, you know, because if something blows up on Twitter, I'll probably know that, but if something blows up on Instagram, I might not know unless, like, you know, the local paper figures it out, which means that's last. No offense to the local paper. Well, that's almost half an hour. Should we all introduce ourselves, or Kristen, should we do that?
Well, I just want to say something. I'm going to say thank you to Rochelle.
Yes, thank
For
you.
giving us a
Thank you.
Rochelle, we'd like to reciprocate. Here's a
So then, as a finisher, I just want to say thanks to you, because I know this was a lot of time out of a very busy set of schedules and a lot of effort, and I've learned so much from this. I need to do one of these just for what I've learned from this. So really, I'm very grateful that you have been willing to let me play all this stuff with you and learn from that.
We should thank all of the folks at the River Campus Libraries who let us get away with taking 3 days.
Thank you.
If any of us owe you an email, it's coming.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.